Hey, it is 11:40 The Bet and Audacy Sports. A week 15. We preview the game that was supposed to be on Sunday Night Football, but we know what the Raiders have done this season, so we get the standard 105 start. Joining us now to give us some Patriots perspective, editor of Patriots.com, co-host of Patriots Unfiltered and the Patriots Unfiltered TV, Paul Perillo joins us. Paul, first off, thank you so much for joining us, and I need to know, how does it feel to have a team in the playoff race? Because at this point, a lot of Raider Nation is numb after losing to Baker Mayfield last week, to be honest.
Yeah, that was a killer for the Raiders. I fully anticipated them winning that game and then having a chance on Sunday to get themselves into that playoff discussion with a chance to beat the Patriots, sort of move ahead of them based on the tiebreaker and have a chance. So, yeah, that was a stunning last 5 minutes or so, allowing Baker Mayfield to do what he did. But, it's funny. I don't think that Patriots fans probably feel all that much better than you guys do right now, just because the offense has been such a mess all year. And whether they make the playoffs or not, I don't think a lot of people have a lot of faith that they will do any damage if they, in fact, get there.
And I have some questions too. Obviously, Matt Jones, Matt Patricia, a lot of headlines and a lot of things happening on the sidelines. But I guess I want to start here, and I kind of want to backtrack. Throughout the years of covering the team, what you thought of Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator, of course, for all those Super Bowl teams, and then also, obviously, with the outside perspective of the Raiders, what you thought of his coaching job so far here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I think, really highly of Josh. I didn't know him, exceptionally well, but on a personal basis, he was always more than accommodating for us, inside the building. And I enjoyed, our conversations when we did have a chance to speak with him. And I thought he did a really good job as offensive coordinator, especially last season with a rookie quarterback in Mac Jones. And obviously, it's not a very difficult job when Tom Brady's your quarterback for all those years, but different situation the last two that he was the offensive coordinator with Cam Newton, who obviously had a skill set that was entirely different than anything he had ever worked with here in New England. And then Mac Jones last year, I thought he was innovative. I thought he came up with a lot of creativity in terms of trick plays. He used to use Jacoby Myers as a passer, from time to time, from afar. And you obviously, Adrian, would know a lot more about this than I would. It doesn't seem like a lot of it's translating to the Raiders. And I know that it takes time to get your system in place. So I can understand a little of the fits and starts offensively, with Derek Carr and the rest of that group. But the blown leads in the second half, that at least has to be partly coming down on the coaching staff. And you have to find, you're obviously doing something to get a 17-point lead in the second half. You got to find a way to hold those and close those out. And I think ultimately when you guys do your postmortem, when the season's over, you're going to say, those 4 double-digit leads that they blew in the second half are the reason why they're not in the playoffs.
And it's just been a tough situation too, because obviously on one half, you want to give someone the benefit of the doubt because it's the regime's first year. And on the other side, it's like, well, hold on. This was a playoff team last year, unbelievably, with everything that happened on and off the field. Right. And also Devontae Adams and Darren Waller's been hurt. And these offensive pieces, it's kind of been mind-boggling. But when it comes to you guys in the Patriots, and I do want to ask about that incredible duo on the defensive side, but I'm curious, for you personally, when it comes to on-field talent, who is the most talented player on that Patriots roster right now, in your opinion?
That's a great question. I'm going to give you probably an answer I don't think a lot of others would, and I'm going to say it's Ramondre Stevenson, who is a very multifaceted running back that they've had, and he's really come into his own in his second year. He's a tough runner, breaks a lot of tackles, moves the pile, but also has the explosiveness to make big plays in space. And in this year, he didn't get to do it a lot as a rookie last year, but this year he's been asked to sort of serve as the third down back as well. And Damian Harris has missed a lot of time. So it's left Stevenson alone, and you've gotten a chance to see some of those abilities. Matthew Judon would certainly be a guy that would be at the top of most people's lists. And I think he's had an outstanding season with 14.5 sacks. But in terms of pure ability as a football player, I think Stevenson might be the best player on the roster.
No, and that's good to know. And one thing I am very scared about is, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it this week, Raiders offensive line isn't good. There's been, I counted 15 different variations that's been on the field in the regular season. They
Right.
just cut an offensive lineman that played 97% of the snaps in last week's game. We got other offensive linemen that are questionable. And on Monday night, Patriots defense, 6 sacks, interception, forced a fumble, recovered it for a touchdown. I need to know this duo, Judon and Uche, how impressive have they been?
Yeah, Judon's been outstanding really since the start of the season. He's been, last year he came as a free agent from Baltimore. First half of the season, same thing that we've seen this year. He had sacks in virtually every game, and then it kind of fell off from the bye week on. He did very little after that, and it looked like it was starting to shape up similar to that this season. He, got out again, got very hot out of the gates. 3 sacks, I think, against the Colts a few weeks back. And then all of a sudden they played Minnesota and Buffalo, 2 teams that are a little bit better offensively, and he didn't really make much of an impact. Bounced back a little bit in the second half against Arizona. To me, that game kind of changed. 3 plays in, Kyler Murray goes down, and that was the end of the game, in my opinion. And then the Patriots get that scoop and score that you referenced, and that sort of made Colt McCoy have to throw the ball toward the end of the third quarter into the fourth. And that's when the sacks really piled up. Uche's a guy, he's a third-year player, former, third-round pick, second-round pick out of Michigan, who has been very quiet, in his first couple of years, battled a lot of injuries. All of a sudden, the last, I think it's 6, 7, he's got 10 sacks in his last, I would say, 7 games or something like that. So his production has been really noticeable, and he's kind of developing in. The Patriots don't have a lot of guys that just quote unquote do this thing, the pass rush specialist. Bill Belichick doesn't really do that a lot, but he looks like he's starting to do that with Josh Uche. They're not asking him to drop in coverage a lot. They're not asking him to play all 3 downs and stop the run, set the edge, and do those sorts of things. They're asking him to get after the passer, and he's been very effective at it. Again, on Monday night, I thought, he really turned it up and made Colt McCoy miserable by the end of that game.
Well, they might have the same feeling after this game on Sunday, based on the Raiders' offensive line. But as good as that duo's been defensively, and you hinted at it at the beginning of the interview, I kind of want to know what's going on. What's the dynamic between Matt Patricia and Mac Jones? It's been spicy at times this season with some of the things on the sidelines.
It just hasn't worked, and I think part of that is on Mac Jones, because I don't think he liked the idea that Bill Belichick had to go with a defensive coach as the offensive coordinator. And a lot of us agreed with Mac Jones. And we've talked about it all offseason. We didn't understand it. But at the same time, I don't think Mac has done a great job of sort of accepting it. It's one thing to think this isn't going to work. This is going to work. I don't want to do this. But it's reality. And at some point, you just got to find a way to make the best of it. And I don't think it has really happened. Part of the problem, I think, is Patricia's, inexperience, as you would imagine. They've had problems getting plays in on time at times. I think that speaks to some of that inexperience. But I think that the Patriots don't have Davante Adams. They don't have a guy that can just take all the pressure off the quarterback because he's so good.
Everybody
But
has to do their job.
Yeah, they do have 4 or 5 guys that are capable of making plays. Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, and Nelson Aguilar, none of those guys are ever going to be confused with Davante Adams. But they're NFL receivers capable of making plays, and they've had success in this league. But that success hasn't translated for the entirety of the offense this season. It just hasn't been fluid. Too many penalties, too many mistakes. The offensive line has been a huge issue. Some injuries have hurt them lately. Now Stevenson's banged up. Damian Harris has been banged up, and the offensive line is missing right tackle Isaiah Wynn. The pass protection has been an issue, but I think it all stems from the original decision that I don't think Mac Jones was fully on board with, and that has caused a lot of strife, as you said.
And I apologize if this question's a little bit unfair, but I'm just going to ask it. Do you think Matt Patricia is going to come back next season as a offensive coordinator for the Patriots?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question. That's all anybody talks about around here. It's not an unfair question at all. My feeling is that if Bill Belichick, it was completely up to him and it was 100% his choice, I think he would roll with it. I think he would bring Patricia back. I think he respects Patricia immensely. And I think he would try to see if it could work with a little bit more experience. I think there's going to be some pressure within. And this is nothing that I know. These are things that some people in Boston have sort of alluded to, but no one's really reported with concrete evidence but I feel like the powers that be and the Kraft family, Robert Kraft, is not happy that this is a 500 team for 3 years without Tom Brady, and I think they feel like there's more on the roster than just a 500 team. And I think he's going to look at the way the coaching staff unfolded, and I think Mac Jones has been unhappy, and I think if your quarterback's unhappy, sometimes you have to tell him to just shut up and deal with it, but other times you have to sort of cater to him a little bit too. They need a little bit more in terms of
But
playmaking ability
you
around him, and they need to make a change.
do they need to cater to Mac? I guess my thing is like, well, who are you, Mac Jones? Like you've had a good season or two, but like, who
Yeah.
are you, Mac Jones? You might be the third or fourth best quarterback in the division, or third best quarterback in this division, maybe. Is that fair? Or
Yeah, no, I think it's more than fair. I think a lot of people have said that, like he had, I'm sure you saw the outburst Monday night, and that's not the first time that's happened, by the way, with Mac Jones. And a lot of the detractors have said, what has he done to earn that kind of behavior? Who is he to be doing that? He hasn't accomplished anything in this league. And that's true. But at the same time, I also think if you want him to be your starting quarterback, you do have to give him some sort of say and leeway to do things the way he's more comfortable.
absolutely.
So I think it's a very fine line. It's not an easy situation. I feel like there will be a change made more than likely, but I'm not so sure Bill Belichick will want it to be made.
Hey, it's 1140 The Bet. Paul Perillo joining us from Patriots.com. Be sure to follow him to get some good insight. PFW Paul on Twitter. And one thing that I do enjoy, and I'm so glad that we are facing somebody in this division of yours, is it's fascinating because, of course, the Super Bowl expectations for Buffalo. The Jets have a great defense. They need a quarterback. Patriots are always in there. And then Miami with all the hype. And I thought this road trip that Miami was on, they'd do a little bit better because now they're going into Buffalo and they might lose, and the weather and everything that's going on with that rivalry that's bubbling up. But I'm looking at Miami's schedule, and you guys have to play them in a couple weeks. And I think you guys might be playing spoiler and getting your guys into the playoffs and spoiling their chances. But I'm curious, with this division, what are your thoughts overall on the Dolphins?
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are really talented. I think the defense has taken a little bit of a step back from what we've seen in the last couple of years, but it's okay. But what I thought was something they could really rely on was the offense, and that California trip really opened my eyes. I got a chance to watch a good chunk of both games because the Patriots played on Thursday and then on Monday, so I was home watching a lot of the Miami stuff, and really, I thought the San Francisco game, I thought Tua was just off target. I thought he had some opportunities to make plays. He was just a little bit erratic in that game. The Chargers game was a complete and total breakdown offensively. That offense looked awful from start to finish in that game, and I was surprised by that. I thought Mike McDaniel maybe had progressed to a point that they would be on something like that, but they're going to be a lot of soul searching. Now they have to go up to Buffalo. It's not a game that they're expected to win. And what I would really worry about with Miami in general is offensively, what happens when the weather turns a little bit? Tua is not the strongest armed quarterback in the league. Can Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle operate the same way if it's 25 degrees and snowing as they do in 80-degree temperatures down in South Florida? So I think they have a lot of work to do. I think Miami is immensely talented. They should make the playoffs. I know they have, a reasonably tough schedule coming in. They should find a way to win a couple of games down the stretch and get in. But I think what we've seen the last couple of weeks is they're not quite ready to be a contender yet.
Yeah, and it's just absolutely fascinating in that division. Kind of what we thought our division here with the Raiders was going to be. But with all that being said, for this Sunday, ultimately, what is your prediction on the game?
Yeah, I like that. They're going to ask you a question first. I'm going to tell you I like the Raiders in this game, but I'm going to ask you to tell me what you think the mindset of the players. Have they quit on Josh McDaniels? Do you think there's any sort of chance that they don't want to play hard for him down the stretch? Because that might cloud my judgment.
I think that they are embarrassed. And my problem is I don't know how they're going to respond to that. And in theory, with Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller coming back and having to miss so much time, and for Hunter, he's missed 3 games his whole career. This season, he's already missed 7. I'm curious, those 2 guys in particular are kind of going to be the things I'm going to watch out for. Because if they play hard just because they want to play for their, the name on the back of their jersey and just represent because they haven't been able to play that much.
Right.
Josh Jacobs been having a phenomenal season. I don't see that stopping. I have more we've had question marks. The offensive line's been the thing we've worried about all season. I told you 15 different variations of this offensive line, but Josh Jacobs is still leading the league in rushing and having a phenomenal season. But when this team has lost the way that they have, I'm going to be honest, fan base is numb. I'm over it. I couldn't believe it. It was asinine. I'm from Cleveland. So there was a lot of thoughts with Baker Mayfield doing this as I was watching
Oh,
this, but
yeah.
I couldn't believe not even just the performance on the field, but that game-winning touchdown with 15 seconds left. Rams had no timeouts that entire drive. You have a rookie cornerback who's guarding this guy by himself with no help over the top. To me, it's how is that possible as a coaching staff? Why are you putting
Right.
your players in that position to be one-on-one when it's the only thing the Rams can do? It's not like they need a field goal. So things like that have me so hesitant that I can't predict them to win a game because they've blown 4 of them when they've had these leads. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just was kind of curious because you do wonder, do they not really, if they don't really believe in the coaching staff and this to me is an example where, if the coach has the players, he goes in and all the players know where Josh McDaniels came from. They know where Mick Lombardi came from and all the rest of the guys that are on that staff now. This is a big game for Josh McDaniels. He's going to put his best foot forward. If they play hard for him, I think the Raiders have more talent than the Patriots, and they're at home. Patriots have been out there for 2 weeks. They're probably tired. The injury report is what it is. There's 4 guys that didn't practice yesterday for New England, and they're all, reasonably important players. I think the Raiders are better. I think the Raiders will find a way to win, but I'm not sitting here betting my mortgage on it. I'm not gonna tell you I feel great about it. And if it's say, 27-10 Raiders, late third quarter, I don't know how great I would feel as a Raiders fan based on the way that's happened. But here's the thing. The Raiders can't hold a lead. The Patriots can't come from behind. So something's got to give there. Either the Raiders are going to hold on to a lead or the Patriots are going to do something they haven't done really in 2 years. And that's come from a multi-score deficit late in the game to win. They've done it once. And that was against Houston, at Houston last year, in a game that there was a lot of issues with the Texans. Is obviously a very bad team. But I have 27-23 Vegas right now, but you can talk me out of it.
Hey, listen, I don't want to because you're the only one around here that's going to hear them taking the Raiders. But before we let you go, to your point, though, the question that you asked, if this team quits, if this team cares about this coaching staff and Dave Ziegler is the general manager in the front office and everybody, this will be the game to prove it. Because if it's not a playoff race, you just brought up the importance of this homecoming reunion with McDaniels and Belichick. And of course, McDaniels wants to be the Padawan that defeats the Jedi Master. But Paul, you were highly recommended from my Boston folks, and you didn't disappoint. Thank you for the insight. Thank you for the conversation. We appreciate you.
All right, anytime. Glad to help.